I don't know. Anyway, so I want to introduce our last speaker. Sarah has been so patient, um, even during her mishap yesterday. She was really charming and lovely, and just good natured. I am so happy that we got to know each other a little bit, and you got to know all these other wonderful ladies. And I do hope that you connect with them, you stay connected with them, you work with each other to build more community. So, Sarah, if you will unmute yourself, please. And I'm going to turn this over to you, and you've got a half an hour. Teach what you know.
Fabulous. Thank you, Tony. And I'm so excited to get to talk. Yay. I really want to congratulate all of you. I know that some of the what I'm going to talk about today may not be your exact level of interest, but the cool thing is that you guys are really smart and you're really determined to build the lives that you want. And part of that means that you're learning cool stuff about video and telesummits and people like Tony. So I know that there's going to be a connection of some kind. My official talk title was, I'm looking it up right now, Midlife, Now It's Your Turn, 3 Steps to Creating Your Best Chapter Ever. So I want to know, if I could, I'd see you raise your hands. Anybody in any kind of a transition? Anybody close to retirement, through retirement, maybe have an empty nest? This is the kind of stuff that I'm going to talk about today. So if that's you, you're in the right place. And if it's not you, I know it is somebody on video out there is going to be the one. So that's what we're going to talk about a little bit. And again, congratulations for being here. And thank you, Tony, for having me, for putting up with my craziness yesterday, and for allowing me to be the last speaker of the Women in Influence Conference. So I'll tell you a little bit about me. I grew up in a family that was very uniquely communication oriented. And what I mean by that is I had a dad who had what's called speech aphasia. He had had an aneurysm before any of us were born, a brain aneurysm, and it meant he couldn't speak well. So he would speak in bits and pieces, sometimes saying something like desk when what he meant was chair. He would mix words up, and it was hard to understand him. And then I had a mom who was an English major, and she was a 3rd generation English major. So she'd grown up in a family where all we talked about was language all the time. And she was really good at correcting language and telling us to aspirate our H's and to speak up and enunciate and all sorts of things around language. So you can imagine I've got these 2 big influences. One is somebody who knows everything there is to know about how you ought to talk. And the other one is struggling just to talk. And the cool thing that happened as a result of all that is I am really, really good at picking out the message because of what I had to do growing up with a dad like that. He couldn't speak it easily. I could translate it. And then I learned all this stuff about language from my mom, who couldn't understand him easily because she didn't grow up that way. And so, and the melding is basically I'm an expert at taking what is an invisible message, something that someone is trying to get out, and I can help them get it out. And it's been really fun to use that in a lot of different ways. So I'm going to show you right here. I have a couple of books I've written actually about writing and about language because I've helped a lot of entrepreneurs get their message out in this way. And I'm really good with it. I'm also really good at pulling invisible stuff out and making it visible just in general. And the journey that I've been on writing like that has taught me more and more about the power of language. So what I now know that I didn't know when I was little in that house is that language creates your world. And what we choose to think, the words we use to think, and the words we use to speak are how we create our lives. And over time, I've learned more and more about how to create the life you want by using this language. So that's sort of where I'm leading today because I love to work with people that are in transition. And I know we're all in transition all the time, and I know there's many different definitions for the word transition. But what I'm talking about here is how things change all the time. So a little teeny transition you might have is when you wake up in the morning. You've just transitioned from sleep to wake, and some of us have a real hard time with that. I know a lot about teenagers and how hard it is for them to do that in the mornings sometimes. It's a shift, it's a change. Changes are put on us in life, and they're not something we get to choose usually. A change just happens. But what happens in us in reaction to that change is the transition, is the process that we go through to adjust, to make new plans, to start a new life. Some of them are really big things like being born. That was a heck of a transition that I think all of us have in common. And that other big T that's coming for all of us is when we die. That will be another big transition. And there's lots of other ones that are sort of predictable, like go on to school, going to college maybe, getting married, having children. There's all sorts of ones that are sort of societal norm transitions. And one that I'm particularly fond of and that I'm going to talk about more today is the transitions at the sort of other end of that, which is retirement and empty nest, because our society has not really prepared us for those at all. But all of them are similar. You go through stages, and when something is thrust upon you, a new change, you have some really typical responses that you go through. And if you don't go through them very well, or if you struggle, or if you get stuck, your life is not as fun for you and as enjoyable as it can be if you learn, or when you learn, to navigate those transitions. So I'm going to be talking today about how to create the life that you want when you're in that kind of a transition, how you can imagine where you're going to go, how to set yourself up for that next new chapter of life so that you really can have more fun with it. And I'll tell you a little bit about my favorite reason for this is, well, I have two sons, and I'll show you, here it is. I was I'm going through some cookbooks the other day. Can't even really remember why, but I had to look up a recipe, and I pulled out this folder that I have that has a bunch of loose things in it, and I found this, and I'm going to hold it up. And you can see this beautifully handwritten this is maybe from first grade or kindergarten, I don't know. And this is when my son was in a class where they made a hot banana split. I hope you can read it, it's backwards for me. But this is the picture he drew of his banana split. It doesn't look much like a banana split to me, but that'll tell you how old he was when he drew it. And I come across this thing, and I'm already doing it right now. You find this stuff when your kids are grown up, and you realize, holy cow, this person's not around anymore. It's over. And that's a big shift. And I recognized it already for myself, and I've already had one child move out of the house. But what I didn't realize is no matter how much you know about transitions and how much you know that it's normal to go through them, that doesn't mean that you're actually going to do it very well. And it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you if you don't do it very well. What it means is that you're going to maybe need a little support and a little research. And I love what Lisa was talking earlier about information gathering, because that's exactly what I did. I could see it coming in a big way, especially when I found the banana split picture. And I thought, I need to really understand this, because I was an old mom, meaning I was way past 30 when my first was born and way past 40 when my second was born. So I lived a long time before I had kids. I had some kind of a life. I must have, right? I don't know what I did before I had children, but I did something. So it must be possible to do something again after this. And that might sound strange to you, but if you've had babies, if you've had children, it also might sound really common, because lots and lots of people go through this. And it's not just women. Because in our culture, thank God, in the last, 20 years or so, it's been more and more acceptable for men to be more involved in the caretaking of their children. They are also at times struggling with what's called the empty nest syndrome as well. And on a side note, because I love language so much, I want to throw it out to all of you. Please, anyone, send me a text, send me a message. If you can come up with a more positive way to describe the time of life when your kids move out of the house and you're not actively involved in raising them anymore, there is nothing else that I have found besides empty nests. And I don't like it much. I think it's kind of negative. So I'm either going to find a way to make it positive, or I'm going to develop a new one. And if you've got an idea for me, let me know, because there isn't one. If you go online and Google, you won't find anything else, just empty nest. And we all know what it means, and I think it's kind of a bummer. So we're going to learn a little bit about transitions and then a little bit about how to navigate this one in particular. And hopefully it won't take more than a half hour. I don't think it will. So the first thing that happens when you come up against a change is a reaction to that. And sometimes it's a really positive thing. Thank God something's changing. You know, I'm so thrilled they're moving out. I mean, many people are like, yay, he's almost 18, he's going to move out. But when it actually happens, it's not the same feeling that they have. So before that, we're just complacent. We're living our life. And then a change comes along, and often it feels pretty good. We're pretty excited about it. And then reality kind of sets in. And when that happens, we can have all sorts of emotional things that go on with us. And all of them are normal. And all of them you want to feel and process, but you also don't want to get stuck in them. So one thing I want to make sure you know about transitions is you're not going to be able to avoid it, the process, meaning you've got to go through it or stall out completely. So there's no way to like just leap over from beginning to end. You've got to go through the process, but with support and information, you can get through it faster. So initially, you might be really happy, and then you might start to get mad. And usually, or often, it can be I'm mad at this person because they're moving out, or because they're not doing what I want them to do, or I'm mad at me because I'm not handling this well. And that was kind of my experience. I thought, well, I understand this, so why can't I do it? And I thought that I was failing in some way. And that's very common, but there's the danger that if that anger is not processed, to go into depression and to go into even more a hostile thing where you get so angry you're beginning to impact all your other relationships. So you may see that kind of thing in your family and friends. Somebody goes through retirement or through this kind of empty nest time, and all of a sudden hell breaks loose with all of their relationships, and they end up splitting up with their partner of 30 or 40 years. They end up quitting jobs. They end up changing a lot of things because they're so uncomfortable. It's really what that is. The anger has taken over. The other thing that can happen is you can get into like denial, like this isn't really happening. I don't want this to happen. And if you do that with your kids, you end up trying to like make them still be kids. And I also struggle with this. I'm like, let's go fly a kite. No, he doesn't really want to do that anymore. He's done with that. It doesn't matter that I'm not done with it. I still want to do things that I feel like we should have done when he was young. I want to kind of make up for it. It's a natural thing. Well, he's done, and it doesn't matter. So I have to recognize what my child is like now. He's a young adult. He's an adult. We're going to have an adult-adult relationship. How the heck do you do that? So it's real easy to go into denial and say, no, I need to have children again. One way that a lot of people do that is they either get really excited about the grandchildren showing up because then I'll have a baby again to take care of, or sometimes they go and get another baby themselves somehow. If they're still fertile, they can do it that way. Otherwise, somehow maybe foster parenting, that kind of thing. You bring a child into your house because you just can't stand to not have one. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. I don't want to sound judgmental, but if you don't really want that, then there's something wrong with that. So if you're doing it because you just can't stand the uncomfortableness of not having a kid around, then that's something you want to look at. If you have always wanted to run a daycare and adopt children or whatever, then that's fine, if that's truly what you want for yourself. But if it's just about denial, I would encourage you to take another look. So we move through our process of transition. There's other things that you're going to go through, but eventually, you know, if we can avoid the denial and the depression and the hostility that can really take us off track, eventually you're going to start to accept it and then get excited about the new phase that you're moving into. And this is the same process that we go through for every transition in life, short one, big one, small one. And when we can see that where we're going and the new place and the new excitement, that's when we're, feeling way better. And that's where I like to be, is helping people get there. And the way I do it in part is with language, setting up a new vision so you can see where you're going. The other thing that will happen once you get there and you're living this new life again is complacency will also set in. And that just means you're in routine. And this was a really, really useful piece of information for me to learn about, was this whole biology of routines that we are wired for. So we have these great bodies. I think they're great. We live in them, we love them, and they are set up to do things routinely for us. So you don't have to get up every day and think about, well, will I brush my teeth or won't I? Will I get dressed or won't I? Will I go to work or won't I? There's so many decisions every day that you have been making subconsciously, which basically means you made them once or twice, and then your body said, oh, okay, this is something we do all the time, so let's go on autopilot. She doesn't have to think about it anymore. It's a great time saver, it's a great energy saver, and it's a really, really cool way to make sure that your biological being stays around. So we are wired biologically to do everything that we can to keep our bodies alive so they can reproduce. That's the whole biological agenda, let's say. And what that means is, let's keep it safe. It's working now. It seems okay. Let's keep doing the same thing. And that's what the body says. Let's keep doing the same thing. It works. She's safe. She's alive. We're not going to change anything. And that's why change is so upsetting for us. We go, oh my God, I'm being disturbed. I don't understand, because I used to have this routine. And it's not just a mental routine that I'm used to seeing my child every day. There's routines that we get into that are biologically impacting us. So if you can imagine, you are used to having your beautiful child say goodnight to you every night. Good night, Mom. Well, every time you hear that, you get a little squirt of dopamine. You get a little bit of oxytocin. And these feel good. And your body says, ooh, I like that. And so I want more. And if I don't get it at 8:45 at night or 9:45 or 10:45 or whatever the schedule generally is, I'm in withdrawal and I'm mad. I want my fix. So this is a huge part of what's going on with us when we go through these kinds of transitions. Big transitions, 20 years of parenting, you've been doing the same thing pretty much every day for all that time. Your body is hooked. And when you learn that, it's kind of a bummer maybe, because you got to go through some withdrawal, but you can. That's the thing. There's a way to do it. And it's liberating to understand that this is my body. My body is wired to do this, and I can unwire it. I can rebuild these neural nets, because that's what they're called, this neural patterning, and then I can feel better. And when I feel better, it won't hurt so much to come across a picture from the kindergartner that, oh, there's this baby, he's just not around anymore. That hurts. Well, it won't hurt as much when I am not craving that fix. So this was really, really useful information for me, and I want to just give it to you. There's all sorts of methods to learn how to do this, to how to break some of those habits. But I just want to make sure you know it, because you're normal, and your body is not your friend here, but your body will be your friend again when you grab a hold of it and tell it, we're done with that habit. We're making new habits now. These habits aren't going to kill us. They're going to keep us safe, but they're new ones. So just come along for the ride with me, because we're going to like it when we get there. So that's a really important part for me about how to navigate this whole thing. Is just understanding that your body is not your friend all the time. But you can take charge of it and be in control of it. So we've talked a little bit about this empty nest idea and how it's negative in my mind. But I also think that we need to remember that retirement and the label it's been given Social Security, Medicare, all that stuff was all set up with the idea that people didn't usually live to be more than 62, 63, maybe 65 if they were really lucky. They didn't live very long. And so there wasn't this chunk of time that we had to figure out what to do with. Most of us, 100 years ago, were dead by then. So there isn't a lot of societal support for, okay, now what? And so again, it can feel kind of like, wow, I'm lost. I don't know what to do. I've retired. I thought somehow that was going to be like this magic fun thing. The kids have moved out again. I thought it was going to be a magic fun thing, and I feel lousy. I feel unsettled. I don't know who I am anymore. I just feel crappy. And that's in part, number one, our body's not supporting us. And number two, society hasn't really given us a whole lot of education about what to do with this time of life and how to be useful. And most of us want to be useful. And our society in general doesn't value elders in this society, in the United States. I don't think they do nearly as well as they do in other countries. So we really also have that kind of against us here. So I want to just encourage you that, number one, because we're creatures of habit, we can change our habits, and there is hope. And so you can do something about it. And this will be the first step. So hopefully you've got something you can write on, a piece of paper, to make some notes, because this is actually going to be a real exercise that I want to put you through. And the first part of it is, because I love language, journalism, and all that, it's a headline, basically. So what I want you to do is take just a minute, big breath, and take a minute to think about what you were doing 5 years ago. And if someone was going to write a headline, or if you were going to write a headline describing your life and what you were up to 5 years ago, what might it say? And I'm not going to ask you to share it with a bunch of other people, even if I could right now, but I want you to think about it. And I'll give you an example. I have this fantasy person that I wrote a headline for. His name is John Doe. And John Doe, 5 years ago, had a headline that said, John Doe is celebrating and is overwhelmed by fatherhood. So you know what a headline is. It's a short little thing. It's a little title on top of a newspaper article that gives you enough information that you decide if you want to read the article or not. It's meaty and it's short. And so poor John Doe clearly has been involved in fatherhood, and he's not liking it all the time. And so when I talked with him, he said, yeah, 5 years ago, that was my headline. 5 years ago, John Doe celebrating and overwhelmed by fatherhood. So if you would take a minute just to write down your headline from 5 years ago and think about it a little bit. Where was I at? What was going on? And what was the general feeling? If I were to write a newspaper article, what would the headline be? You can also, if you have trouble with writing in words, because that's my favorite thing, but it's not everyone's, you can imagine maybe a photograph on the cover of a magazine. If someone were to have a shot, a picture of what you were doing, where you were at 5 years ago, what would it look like? So just take a couple minutes to do that, and then we're going to fast forward in time, because I'm assuming it's done now, and talk about today. What would your headline be for today? 5 years later, what's the headline? What's going on in your life now in relation to what the big deal was 5 years ago? What's happening now? And again, I'll check in with John Doe. John Doe, 5 years later, John Doe opens a dad-run daycare. So that's where he's at today. And you will have a different one. And you will have a different one for whatever transition you may be in as well. So this is, again, just an exercise to help you begin to move through your transition, whatever it is, and to help you, what stage am I at here? So our first headline with John Doe, he's overwhelmed and excited. He's kind of in the beginning of that transition into fatherhood. And now he's open to daycare 5 years later. So he seems to have kind of adjusted to it and actually decided to move into it kind of more deeply, like taking it on. This is not just who I am as a dad, this is my role in the world now. And so let's say you've done that. So you have your headline for 5 years ago, you have your headline for today. And now's the big challenge. Let's write a headline for where you're going to be in 5 years. So this is where you want to be in 5 years, not where other people think you should be, not where you think society thinks you should be. It's your fantasy. You get to do anything you want. But when you mess around with this 5 year in the future headline, what's going to happen is all your creativity is going to start flowing, and you're going to start getting some ideas about where you want to go. If we remember that transition thing, you dive down into kind of uncomfortable, and then you're coming up and feeling hopeful. Well, that's the light. Where are we going? What's the vision? This is your best chapter ever that we're creating. We have to have a vision for it. So this headline for 5 years in the future is that vision. So here we go with John Doe's headline. John Doe named Father of the Year at National Daycare Expo. Woo! So his fantasy, if he's just opened a daycare and he's just learned a little bit about how dads run daycares that's different than how moms do, if there even is such an organization, he might be saying, this would be a really cool thing to do. I would love to win that award. I'd love to go to that expo. I'd like to really be that good at this. So that's his headline. And I'm sure that you guys, all the amazing movers and shakers and women of influence, have headlines already or have goals already, but you may not have written them out in this way. So that's why I like to do the headline, because it's more around journalism and words than other ways to do it. But it gives you something it's a target to aim for. And 5 years in the future is often a really good one to go with. So those are the 3 steps that I wanted to give you today to get you started on creating your best chapter ever. When you get that headline, the 5 years in the future headline, then the next step is to really begin to brainstorm, well, what do I have to do to make sure I get to that headline? What kinds of things in my life do I have to add? What things do I need to get rid of? What things wishing because they're just right? If dad is, John Doe's going to win this award, well, obviously he's probably got to keep his daycare going. Maybe he's going to have to franchise it out. Maybe he's going to have to grow it in some way. Maybe he's going to have to take some kind of an education or certification course. There's just tons of different possibilities of things that you might or might not want to bring on board to make sure that you get to that headline. And one way to look at that is to just ask yourself, what critical issues need to be addressed in order to, and then you just put your headline there, in order to become this person that's winning this award. What do I have to make sure I do? Maybe it's not the right time to sell my house and go on a trip around the world for 2 years, because that's not going to help me get to where I want to be in 5 years. So you can really sort that out. And that's a whole nother process that's more work than we're going to do today. But I don't want to leave you dangling like, oh my God, what do I do? How do I make my headline happen? What you want to do is begin to brainstorm ideas for how to get there. And so those are just kind of the 3 steps. I want to show you something, if I dare share the screen, because just a little while ago, I had a headline that I shared with a bunch of friends of mine, and it was Adventurous Entrepreneur Plans to Celebrate 60 by Taking Surfing Lessons with Her Kids. That was my headline that I put together for another group I spoke with, and if I could do this right, you will see a picture on Facebook. I hope you're seeing it, because that was last weekend when I made my headline come true. So I will stop sharing it because I'm not confident in my ability to do that at all, but hopefully you saw it. And there we were, we went surfing, we did it. So there's a lot more to this, and I'm not going to do more today, but I do want to make sure that you understand that you might be kind of excited and you want to know more about how to move forward on your best chapter ever. So of course you can hook up with me. I will be typing my email into the chat box, and you can reach out to me, because I would love to spend some time talking with you if you're interested in doing more about how to make this best chapter ever. So you can shoot me an email there, and what I'll be doing is giving you 30 minutes to spend some time going through your headline, the one you've created today, and then helping you to make some real personalized steps towards creating that. And then we can also talk more about whether or not it's a good fit for us to keep working together. So I'll put that email up there for you in a few minutes. But first, I would love it if we could unmute, and if people would share any ahas they have or any breakthrough little pieces of information they got from my little talk. I have no idea if I spent a half hour or not, but I know Tony can manage it. So thank you
Yeah.
all for listening. I had fun.
And Sarah, thank you. I was thinking about what you were saying, and as I said, I'm going to be turning 55 in a few months, and I can honestly say 50 was a shit show, for lack of a better term. It was just I was not ready for it. Nobody prepared me for it. I didn't know how to handle it. My body was going through all sorts of changes. Men go through this too,
Yep.
and I did not handle it well. 50 um, did not handle it well. I'm more comfortable now. I'm just like, whatever now. It kind of is what it is. I have to admit, I'm almost looking forward to 60, and I don't know why. Because I feel like at 60, I'm kind of going to be, I really don't care. I'm pretty much there
Well,
now,
that's not what's going to happen.
but,
Is the world ready for that?
but, it sort of goes back to what I was saying earlier, no, I have no fucks to give, because you get to a point in your life, in your career, where you're like, what else can you show me that I haven't seen or heard, or whatever. So is something to think about while I have my vodka, and get seriously depressed. But that's okay. No, this was really, really good information. Let's open up the floor to anyone else who wants to comment. Lisa,
Microphone.
Lisa, go ahead.
Microphone.
We can't hear you. We can't hear you, Lisa.
I want to hear you so much.
We can't hear you.
Uh-oh. Wait a minute. I don't know what I did. Okay, I'll go back out and figure it out.
Yeah, we can't hear you. Okay, anyone else? Susie, you always have something interesting to say.
Well, I hope it's interesting. I really enjoyed listening to you. And I love, enunciate is one of my favorite words, number one. And I love the way that you're looking at transitioning. That was really appealing to me. And there are so many more transitions, as you were talking, that were coming to me. It was the transition from being married to being divorced. In my situation, to being married to being widowed.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so many different ways of looking at it. And the headlines that you asked me to create. Well, 5 years ago, I was learning to walk again. And my headline currently would, because I'd broken my back, my headline currently would be, I'm just about to launch my first book. And I've no idea what it would be in 5 years' time. I just don't know what it could possibly be. So you've really made me think and opened up my mind. Really enjoyed listening to you, and I'd like to talk, just to talk, not to work together, but just keep connected.
Well, yeah, let's talk long enough for you to have a headline for what you want it to be in 5 years, because that's the most important thing. None of us know for sure what it will be.
Exactly.
What you want is when you can articulate it, then you are creating it. I really believe that your language is how you create your life. So
Yeah,
I'd like to talk more,
absolutely.
and I appreciate that, because it is. Everything is a transition, and
Yeah.
the better we get at going through transitions, I mean, it's my belief. The better we get at it, the better that big one at the end is going to go for us too. And
But you know,
are really afraid of
I
it
always,
instead of
I
seeing.
put the blocks up against change. I really don't like change. So any transition has always been a nightmare.
Yeah, and that's how most of us feel.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way as Susie. I don't handle change well at all because I had so much in my early um, in my childhood. So I can absolutely relate to that. But I was thinking that it sort of brings up an interesting point. You know, what do you want the headline to be, and what was it 5 years ago? And I'm thinking, you know, 5 years ago, like I said, I was 50. I was losing my hair. I was overweight. I was single, and now I'm less overweight, still losing my hair, still single, but I'm happy about it. I'm happy about being single, and I'm absolutely doing what I want to do, and I'm loving what I'm doing, and I'm making money at it. You know, so it is. Um, I love that idea of transition. That's really really important, and acknowledging where you were and where you are now. I love that. So thank you, Lisa. I see you're back. Can you,
You're
well,
muted.
you're muted. Unmute yourself.
I,
Okay, can you guys hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Yay.
Hey. It's like, ah.
So Sarah, I must have, I think I accidentally took myself off of speaker, and that's what the problem was.
Okay.
But Sarah, I wanted to tell you that I am absolutely 100% in love with writing out your title. I'm in love with that concept. I think it's brilliant. And I love the fact that from that, you could actually create your own strategy for what you desire. So I applaud you.
Well, thank you.
It was beautiful.
Thank you, Lisa. I appreciate it a lot.
Well done. Anyone else? Yes, no, maybe? Okay, so
Please contact me. I'd like to hear more. Anybody has to say about any of it, I'd love to hear from you. So that's all I'll say about that. Thanks.
okay.